Greetings and salutations, guys. I am going to have my spoiler-packed review of Daredevil Born Again, episode 5 and 6 here, because they debuted simultaneously. So one more time, full spoilers for episode 5 and 6 of Born Again. All right, also, my gardeners are here right now, and it might be getting loud. We'll find out. But let's just go forth here in a couple episodes that I thought were great. This is definitely the time of the season where you kind of need it to really pick up steam, and I think it really does in these two episodes for a couple of reasons. First of all, yes, we finally get Matt back in the costumes, and something I've been lamenting for a while that's been taking a while, even though it doesn't happen until kind of the second half of episode 6. But they're both very action-packed episodes. They're both very fun episodes, exciting. And also they tie into the MCU in cool ways that I think are the ways that Marvel has always been great at. I'm going back to the comics here, which is that you don't need the big superheroes showing up all the time. That's great. It's always going to be fun to see a true superhero crossover. But one thing that I always loved in the comics is someone like Foggy, say, showing up as a lawyer in someone's comic book, and Daredevil doesn't. And, you know, just the fact that there are these other characters, these incidental side characters that have been created and they can cross over in this way. So, yeah, this episode, we had Yusuf Khan from Miss Marvel in episode 5. And then we had Jack, soon to be or already, it looks like, the swordsman from Hawkeye in episode 6. These happen to be two shows I really like, too, of the MCU. Yeah, they might have some flaws, but I overall think that they are two of the most satisfying, most fun, most enjoyable ones I really like revisiting, and I really like the characters in both shows quite a bit. I think that, yeah, they both have just sort of a cast of likable, well-crafted characters. So it was funny to see episode 5 really just be Matt and Yusuf. I mean, actually looking at the opening credits of the episode was funny because Charlie Cox and Mohan Kapoor were the only two listed cast members. And obviously Mohan Kapoor, you know, technically, I guess, a guest star. I think he'll only be in this episode. But he was kind of the co-lead. You know, he wasn't just kind of jumping in and out. I mean, this episode was this whole bank hostage crisis, and we really got to see Yusuf kind of step up here. It is funny when you think about what these characters have been through, that if he'd ever just mentioned to Matt, well, I've been to space, you know, that's a thing that's happened to Yusuf in the Marvels. Didn't come up in conversation here, but that's okay. But yeah, just I thought that was a really fun dynamic between the two of them. The scene where they're first meeting is great. Yeah, they go a little heavy-handed on mentioning Kamala, but that's okay. You want to make sure that, you know, people who might not recognize him or might not have seen that show know who he is. So I thought that was fine, and I just liked hearing her mentioned in the same breath as the Daredevil Born Again. I understand that, you know, these shows are very tonally different, and you know, I know there were so many people that had such different feelings about when Daredevil was on She-Hulk. I loved it. I thought it was great, and I like to see Matt in that environment, and I thought he was still being true to his character. Some people think, no, he's got to only stay in this sort of dark, gritty realm. I think it's fine that his show stays that, and then we can see him pop over to other places, be different. And also, I think, you know, I'd hope I'm not alone in saying I do want to see Daredevil kind of team up with more superheroes in, say, an Avengers movie, and I think you have to lay the groundwork for that, so it's not sort of, what, like out of nowhere that he's suddenly dealing with this different realm. So even to meet, you know, Miss Marvel's dad is a fun way to do that, because she represents this whole other superpowered cosmic side of things that is not usually Matt's day-to-day. But yeah, I thought the whole hostage crisis worked really well. You know, because we weren't getting Matt back in the costume yet this episode completely veered back into full action territory in a lot of cool ways. I, you know, thought the stairwell fight that we had where Matt kind of turned the tables on the guy walking him to the bathroom, although it felt a little weird that none of the other hostages wanted to go to the bathroom. I would think if you're a hostage and you might be freaking out, you might need to go to the bathroom. But luckily for Matt, no one else took up that offer. But that was a great fight in the stairwell. I really like that little touch of Matt bracing his foot against one of the stairs to fight that guy. And then a really great fight, an even better fight, I'd say, in the alleyway at the end when, you know, Matt puts on a red mask of all of the different guys with their multicolored mask. Of course, he has the red one, even if he doesn't know that. And that that was an excellent fight there, and the brutality of it, the fact that he was using his cane as his billy club, and then the way he beat that guy with just the kick into I was just gonna say his leg, but maybe his ankle. Either way, something got shattered there. That guy's not going to be doing well. But brought that sort of Daredevil intensity, and while they were holding off for one more episode, putting him back in the full costume, he still fully got to kick ass here. So yeah, really enjoyed episode 5. It's the shortest episode of the season, but I think that makes sense because it's so contained. None of the other supporting characters are in this episode at all. No Fisk, no anyone. I'm guessing this is the episode. We heard going to the season that there was at least one episode that was 100% material shot before they revamped the series. I'm guessing this is the one because it feels so self-contained. Yes, it connects to the bigger story because it is about sort of this money ode, behind the scenes with Vanessa and everything going on there, but it's just telling the story about the bank heist. And I think a show like this, any superhero show, benefits from episodes like this that get to tell just here's this intense sort of standalone-ish story, while also setting up the fact that at some point, whether we see it on screen or not, Matt Murdock's going to go and have dinner with Kamala Khan's family, which is really funny when you think about the fact that he's already had like an outdoor sort of picnic barbecue with She-Hulk and Hulk at one point. So Matt Murdock, and he met Peter Parker, even if he doesn't remember that. Matt Murdock's just socializing, hanging out, having meals and drinks with all the superheroes, slowly but surely. And then episode 6, ratcheted up the intensity. That was the one that got super dark because Muse is such a dark character. Muse is interesting because in the comics, didn't make that many appearances. Kind of this focused, extended storyline with Muse, but obviously a character that lends himself to a story like this. He is so dark, so macabre. All the stuff here with, using blood to paint on buildings and then making it so you can't get rid of the blood. Pretty grotesque, horrific, the more you really dig into that. The fact that it was like up to 60 people's blood. This is dark stuff. And the fact that they are, looking into the fact that they think this probably goes back further and there are probably more people. He is effectively creepy and awful. I do feel bad for the 2 women who went up to him saying, "Muse, we love you." And then he just murdered them and took their eyes. Does not pay to be a Muse fan, apparently. He does not appreciate his fans. Or maybe he appreciates his fans so much he wants to make them part of his art. But yeah, I thought that all the stuff with Muse in this episode worked really well. I liked little things layered in, like seeing Matt praying at the beginning. First of all, it's emotional that he's praying about Foggy. I'm glad that this is a runner. This is, not going to be forgotten. It sucks that Foggy is dead. It needs to have significance. It needs to have weight. And this did the job, reminding you in this moment. Also bringing back Matt praying because his religion is a very important part of his character. It has not tied heavily into this series as yet. There was like one little moment where he's looking at a church. But we have not had that quite, embedded part of it like we did in the old series. So reminding you here, that is a part of him, and Heather being surprised maybe a little bit by the fact that her boyfriend is praying at home. But yeah, he would, he does. Heather talks to him about the sort of next focus she wants to do in a book about vigilantism. It was interesting. It raised some questions for me when she talked about, well, you've represented vigilantes. In fact, she wants to meet Frank Castle. And then Heather brings up the fact that Daredevil. I am curious what that relationship is thought to be to the public. What is the perception? Like, we understand in the comics, at least, the Peter Parker Spider-Man, that people think, well, he takes his picture, so they would know each other. I don't quite know what people would think Matt Murdock and Daredevil, how do they connect, except that I guess they both, Frank Castle, that would be one thing that connects them, but is there other things? I'd have to kind of look back at the history of the character. But yeah, there was more here with sort of the rising of the tension of Fisk not fitting in well with having to do sort of the day-to-day of a politician, and the glad handing and the asking for money. And that brings us to Swordsman, to Jack. We got the opening with the people talking to BB. I'm not loving all the stuff with the BB little reports and the man on the street reports. I don't know if they add that much to the show, but this one gave you this little tidbit that there is someone out there, a new vigilante using a sword that someone calls, it's a swordsman. And so that's clearly gonna be Jack. Again, the comic books tell us that, but even where we left off with him and Hawkeye, and the fact that it's funny to think that he fought the Tracksuit Mafia, because the Tracksuit Mafia is a continuing thing here on this show, on Born Again, and I like how that's a continuing thing, and that Luca, who's in big trouble, now he owes an extra $1 million to Fisk at this point. But then we got Jack coming in face to face, Tony Dalton returning as Jack from Hawkeye. But kind of being a jerk to Fisk and basically saying how I could buy, the mayor's home out from under you, and you have to remember that. And which fits, by the way. Jack, and ultimately is portrayed as a good guy, but certainly arrogant and full of himself. Also, Fisk is not a good person, so it's not like we should be like, hey, don't be mean to Wilson. But yeah, it does show, it reinforces for Fisk, as does all these other meetings with these people, that, what they think of him, and the fact that he hates feeling like, he has to answer to these people. He doesn't want to answer to anyone. He was the kingpin, and as mayor, there are, different facets to what he's doing here, and that is barely being contained within him. And of course, it's going to explode at the end of the episode when he is going to just go old school Wilson Fisk. It was this effective lead up, I thought, to the, final 10 minutes or so of the episode, as we finally got Matt back in the costume, and that is intercut with Wilson Fisk proving that he cannot push aside his true nature, right? And I also like that when he went to go see Adam holding that axe, it's like, well, that's pretty uncharacteristic of Wilson Fisk, who we've seen beat people to death with his hands or just whatever's around, say a car door. And it turns out the axe was for Adam in this modicum of a fair fight, which is not going to really be a fair fight for poor Adam. And the intercutting of the fight between Daredevil and Muse, and I wouldn't even call it a fight between Kingpin and Adam. It's really just Fisk beating this man to death. But it worked really well. And it was a cool fight with Muse and Daredevil. Muse in the comics completely has superpowers in a kind of unexplained way, where he might have been an Inhuman. I don't know here yet. We didn't see enough evidence to prove that this version of Muse has superpowers. We'll see if they kind of go there. But he's creepy. He is a good fighter. The fact that we saw poor Angela, getting her blood drained, I thought pretty sure that Daredevil was going to save her, that we weren't going to have first Hector and then her killed on screen. But yeah, it's just horrible to see this young girl going through this, and the intercutting between these two violent acts. One sort of Matt rising up to embrace his true nature in a way that we want. The other, Wilson Fisk embracing his true nature in a way that was inevitable, that it was never going to work with him just being the mayor and washing his hands of his old life. The blood was always going to come back on his hands. Yeah, I really liked it. I thought that this was, we're more than halfway through the season, but this still feels like kind of the end of the second act, right? It's like everything is back in place. With these two characters, not fully. I mean, Fisk is still got the veneer of being mayor, but even what else he does in this episode, right? Which is he creates this anti-vigilante task force, and he purposely gets the worst, most violent cops, Powell included, to be on this task force. Again, a modern politician purposely recruiting a group of really terrible people. Just don't see any parallels to what's going on in everyday life. That's great, right? It's just like you watch a TV show, it's like, oh, this doesn't remind me of anything, and nothing topical at all. Yeah. Anyway, Daredevil Born Again. This was a really good episode. Episodes, I should say, 5 and 6 for different reasons. And it makes me excited for as we go into the final episodes. I think this really kind of puts us on a good path for the remainder of the season. And Muse is still a threat, obviously. Punisher is still in play. You got Heather wanting to meet him, but more importantly, we have this task force who are exactly the kind of people. We know that a bunch of them are probably the ones with the tattoos, and that are emulating Frank, and how that'll all come together. I'm curious if the Muse and Punisher stuff will directly connect, or if it'll be kind of two different elements that Matt will be dealing with. I think they might collide. We might see Muse and Punisher on screen together which, makes a lot of sense. So those are my thoughts on episode 5 and 6 of Daredevil Born Again. If you can like and subscribe, that'd be great. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll be back with more about episode 7, but also other stuff right here on this channel. Take care. Oh, also, very funny use of an F-bomb when we had Matt say F it when he finally decided to put the damn suit on again. A great way to have him use that word, although this show uses that word a lot, and I don't think they ever did on Netflix, on the Netflix Daredevil series. So it is a little strange to have it said so much on the show in a way that almost feels like they're trying really hard to be like, look, we're not holding back. We're using that language. The Deadpool movies can do it. We can do it too. And part of me thinks, wouldn't it have been fun if we had not heard that word at all on the show until Matt said it at this particular moment? But either way, it was still a pretty damn good use of it.